Maayong adlaw kanatong tanan. Welcome to our class for today. So I hope that you are ready for this training because today we will be talking about the anecdotal record. So kindly get your module with you and open it on page 43 so that you can follow the things that I am going to discuss with you. And I'd like to request everyone to please focus on our study in this training and try to understand the things that I will be discussing to you. Okay, now we are already in the lesson 3, module 2, lesson 3, anecdotal record. So after our discussion, you will be expected to define anecdotal record. Then, after that, you will be able to cite the purpose of using anecdotal record. Then, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of using anecdotal record. And then, for the last objective, you will be able to use the anecdotal record as assessment tool. So that's the time that you are going to apply the discussion by using the anecdotal record as our assessment tool for young children. Alright, so before we proceed to our discussion, let's answer the activate part. And here's the question. You are going to observe a child who is nearby. And then describe what you see or hear for that child. So, mag-observe mo og mga bata nga doon sa inyo ha. And then, don't forget the COVID reminders, protocol, always wear your mask. All you have to do is just to observe a young children or a young child near you. And then, while observing, how did you come up with your thoughts? So, unsa kahaimuhang mga hunahunaan dayon based on the observation. Sa imong na-observe sa bata. And then, proceed to the next question. As an early childhood educator, what do you think is the importance of having an assessment tool in observing a child's behavior? So, unsa kaha ang mga advantage nganong importante man magamit og assessment tools, especially varied assessment tools in observing child's behavior. So, of course, as a teachers, we always have our basis on our interpretations. We cannot just do a conclusion without an observable behavior. Okay, then after that, we are done answering with our activate part. So let me repeat. You are going to observe a child near you and then try to describe what you see, what you hear, what you observe of that child. And then, based on your conclusions, based on your observations, try to make a conclusion about your observation and then describe how did you come up with your thought. And then, for the last question, you are going to write the importance of having an assessment tool in assessing a child's behavior. Nganong importante man ang magamit po assessment tool. So, that's the activate part. So, if you're done answering, then you may proceed to the acquire part. Okay. Let's take a look at the word anecdotal record. An anecdote is a method of informal observation. So, this is not very structured unlike the formal observation. So, this type of method belongs to informal observation, naturalistic observation. So, it is a brief account of important development event. Anecdotes tell stories. So yes, it tells stories because of the things that you have observed for that child. And anecdotes in all developmental areas can give comprehensive picture of a child's development. It also helps the teacher understand a child's behavior in a particular situation and settings. So if we already understand, if we already know our young children, then we will be able to understand their behavior. Daghanda yung taog mga support, and then we may extend our patience. Kung kana nga bata badlungon, it's because of the assessment tools that we have conducted, and it really helps us to understand the behavior of the child. So, kaysa wala ta nakaila, and then we do not conduct an assessment tool, so sometimes makajudge ta, no? So, it's very important to conduct these assessment tools, especially the anecdotal record, for us to understand the behavior of the learner. So, it also allows ongoing comparison of behaviors, which provide a way of documenting changes in the child's behavior. So, kanit po siya, it could also be the basis of the previous and the present behavior of the child. The teacher will know if the child has improved on that certain area, kanang classes of behavior, iya kanang makorrect, and then she can also compare kung naabay improvement sa bata or wala through anecdotal record. So it's not easy to write. There could be a probability of bias and in the selection of events and behavior being recorded. So, just like in the previous lesson, the formal and informal observation, we cannot deny that sometimes nasagulan din siya of bias and sometimes it's unreliable. So we really have to be careful in conducting observation to the young learners. Okay, so these are the 5 characteristics of anecdotal record. So for the first one, it is the result of direct observation of a child. Direct siya, mismo na aka din ha, and then you have observed directly to the child. And then it is a prompt, accurate, and specific descriptive account of a particular event. So when you are going to write an anecdotal record, it should be accurate. Walang labis, walang kulang, for us to avoid biases. And specific descriptive account of a particular. Specific siya, klaro siya. Dili kay kung mag-review ta balik sa ato ang anecdotal record, wala ta sa ato ang di na to mahinungduman. It's because it's not specific. So it should be prompt, accurate, and specific. Number 3, it supplies the context of the child's behavior, which means that accurate accounts of what is said by the child or appropriate participants are included in the context. So as I've said, it should be accurate. Kung unsay gisulti mismo sa bata based on your observation, so that would be the exact record found in your anecdotal record. And the 4th characteristic is that the inferences or interpretations made by the observer are kept separate from the objective descriptions of the event and behavior observed. And then the last is it concerns with the behavior that is either typical or unusual for the child being observed. So those are the 5 characteristics of anecdotal records. So when we conduct an anecdotal record, we have to remember these characteristics. So we have to observe directly to the child, and then we have to make sure that our record is prompt, accurate, and specific in descriptive account. And then also we have number 3, we have to be accurate for our record. And then And for the last, we have to separate from the objective descriptions. And then we also have to concern with the behavior that is either typical or unusual for the being. We have also to observe the children kanang naay mga unusual nga behavior. So here's the example of anecdotal record. So of course, let's not forget to write the child observed. Kinsa gi-obserbahan nga bata. Who is the observer? Of course, the teacher. And then, the observation setting. Asa nahitabo ang imong pag-observe. And then, the date of the observation. And then below, you are going to write what you have observed for the observation part. So, kani siya, DJ, a 5-year-old boy was playing in the toy corner. Diba? Very specific. 2 younger girls joined him. He lined up all the dolls and stuffed animals. Each time one of the girls reached for one, he would authoritatively shout, "That's mine!" The 2 girls learned to play with the kitchenware and play cooking food. So, isa kaha po inyuhang ma-interpret based on the observation. So, this boy doesn't like to he doesn't allow the other girls to get the toys. Medyo dili siya magpa-share, di ba? So, that is the unusual behavior observed by the teacher. And then, as a teacher, try to correct DJ and try to help DJ to be good. So, explain na nimo kang DJ, so naadon kay mga intervention based on the observation in your anecdotal record. Okay. So, these are the advantages of anecdotal record. Okay, here. Needs no special training. So, dili na kinahanglan og training when we have our observation. Kato lang, we just have to follow the 5 characteristics. So, makabuhat na tao anecdotal record. So, anecdotal record is open-ended and can catch unexpected events. So, pwede ta makabuhat og anecdotal record with any events. And also, we can select behaviors or events of interest and ignore others. So, freestyle siya, no? Kung sa lang atong gusto i-observe, pwede ra ka na siya nga event. Or unsa atong interest. Or can sample a wide range of behavior, different types, environments, and people. So, nami siya, freestyle ang anecdotal record. Okay, now let's take a look at the disadvantages of anecdotal record. Number 1, only records events of interest the person doing the observing. Usahay siguro na ay bias kay the only thing that we would like to observe is the event nga maka-interest atua. So, muna siya, no? Disadvantage po na siya. Second one is the quality of the record depends on the memory of the person doing the observing. So, that's why, as a teacher, we really have to be accurate and specific of the things that we have observed for that child para dili mawala sa atong memory. Malimtan na sa dayon na to observe ta and then malimtan and then our anecdotal record is just useless, no? Kung wala man lang tayo action nga gibuhat after we have observed. So, wala lang dahil siya gihapon. Next, disadvantages is it may miss out on recording specific types of behavior. May miss out on recording specific types of behavior. Okay, now we are already done with the advantages and disadvantages of anecdotal record. Now let's try to discuss purpose of anecdotal record. Kasi dahil tumong kung tinguha aning anecdotal record. So, record unusual events such as accidents, For example, no, na inahitabo, na ay we cannot deny that our children and our gina siya inside the classroom. So, na inanunggab og lapis. So, then you are going to write an anecdotal record. Mga aksidente, mga unexpected events, unusual events. Next is record children's behavior, batasan, iyang skills, and interest for planning purposes. And then, record how an individual is progressing in a specific area of development. So, it doesn't mean that anecdotal record only focuses on the accidents, on the unusual events, but it also a record of how an individual is progressing. Giunsa niya nga na-improve siya. For example, we have also nga kaning bata, medyo kuan siya, medyo sugi siya ka zero, ano ka ha. Then we will write our observations, and then we will do an intervention based on that observation. Then later on sa atong anecdotal record, na-record na to ang iyahang how he or she improved or progressed in that specific area of development. So, tsada kaayo no, if we really have to be committed in doing our job, ma-record gid na to kung giun sa pag-improve sa mga bata. And that is very priceless na feeling na nakakatun ang atong mga bata through our interventions, using our different techniques, unsa pa na atong ginagamit for them to learn, and that the child will never forget that. Dili gid nila malimtan ko, especially kung ikaw gid mismo ang nakatubasa sa ilaha. Dagko na lang sila, but they will never forget you as a teacher, and that is very good feeling as a teacher, very fulfilling. Okay, let's proceed to assess part. So I think we're already done, but to sum up, anecdotal record is an informal observation. We have really to observe directly to the child. Anecdotes tell stories because of the things that we have observed. So it would also help the teacher understand the child's behavior in a particular situations. Nasabtan man na sila. So it is also a way of documenting changes in the child's behavior. So kasagaran man gud ni anecdotal is more on the behavior of the child. So ngano kahang gina-observe man nato ang behavior sa child nga we only focus on their learning, sa ilahang knowledge. Of course, if they have a bad behavior, if they encounter mga challenges in their behavior, it will affect their learning. So maapektuhan ang ilahang knowledge, ilahang pagtuon through their mga behaviors, because especially if it is not good behavior. So here's the 5 characteristics. So let me sum up. We have to be accurate, klaro, specific, o we have to make interpretation, separate siya sa atong objective description of the event and behavior observed. So ingon ana siya, i-observe na to, especially the unusual behavior, unusual event of the child. Here's the example, but there are so many formats of anecdotal record. This is just an example, basic lang ni siya, no? Of course, we will not forget all the parts of this anecdotal record na agad ang pangalan sa bata, the name of the teacher, the observation, the time, and the date. Okay, basic lang ni siya. And here's the advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, no special training. It is open and ended and catch unexpected events. So free lang ta, and then it is also free for us to observe based on the events, based on the behavior or events or kanang events that would interest us. And for the disadvantages, it only records events of interest. So it could be also advantages, pwede po siya disadvantages. Kaya naon ta to mas maayo i-observe, but we were not able to observe the behavior because we do not like, because it does not interest us. So, na siya. And then, our record sometimes, malimtan siya, no? Malimtan siya depending on the observer. So, nun ana siya, ma-miss na to siya, malimtan. And the purpose of anecdotal record, pati siya, maka-observe ta sa mga event, unusual event. We could also witness the progress of the child based on this tool na atong na-observe. Ma-witness na to, giunsan niya pag-improve ang iyahang, especially ang iyahang behavior. And then we can also record the behavior, the skills. It could be used as our planning purposes. So, maplano na to. How are we going to manage the class? Using this, using the data of this tool. So, here in the assess part, here's the direction. Using the 4-column grid. Okay, using this matrix or column grid, you are going to describe the anecdotal record. So, write its purpose and identify the advantages and disadvantages. So, all the things here, kaning mga questions are found above, and we have even discussed this one, but I would like to encourage everyone not to copy and paste, but of course, you have to write the things that you have understand based on your own words. Your own words. Base po sa ato ang discussion, dili lang kay gikopya, gikuha sa babaw, gipikit, butang din ha ang inyong answer, no? So, I hope you also do your best. So, that's why I would like to encourage you to use your own words so that you will remember, so that it would be meaningful to you. Dili ninyo malintang na dinhilang tama sa ato ang module. And of course, so that you can apply the things that you've learned here. Okay, so describe the anecdotal record. Write the definition, ang meaning, akong dimension ka ganina, when to use, kanis agamiton, and write 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages of this tool, anecdotal record. So, for the activity 2, you are going to choose a child from 3 to 5 years old. Write an anecdotal record about the child's behavior. So, diba, one of our objective is that you are going to apply or use the anecdotal record as assessment tool for the young children. So, diri na din ninyo i-apply ang how to use anecdotal record. Write the name of the child, observation setting, aha man ni nahitabo, sa inyo bang silingan, aha nga lugar, and then the observer, of course, your name, and the date of the observation. And then write your observation here. Sumubo lang gid siya for as long as I will know nga makagamit mo, you can apply how or you can use this anecdotal record. So here's the rubric for anecdotal record. You can read this one in your module page 47. Okay, I hope that it is clear to you, and so I hope teachers nasabtan ninyo ang atong lesson for today about anecdotal record, and I hope you will not get tired learning. So thank you so much for listening, and see you all in our next session. Goodbye!